Hello and welcome to the John Cady podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired, former minister, and a man who's seen and experienced a lot of interesting things. This is going to be a lighthearted podcast for this afternoon. Going down memory lane a little bit, talking about my early experiences learning how to drive, and also once I finally got my license and one of the first cars I ever had. Everybody has, or I should say a lot of people have those experiences. And me, I was a little hesitant at first when I learned how to drive. I tried to get my permit, and I did get my permit when I was 16, but it wasn't until I was 18 before I finally got my license. I've just, had hesitation, a little bit of cold feet, but once I finally got used to being comfortable behind the wheel, everything began to fall in place. I started learning to drive with this old 1974 Ford Comet, which was a beautiful car. It was gifted to the family after my paternal grandfather suddenly passed away. And the first part of the story begins the day I finally went to take my driving test. Now, back then, this is in the state of West Virginia, especially in Fairmont, you did not go to the DMV to take your driver's test. You did not have a DMV instructor riding with you. No, we went to the state police barracks. So, making himself comfortable in the passenger seat of that Mercury Comet was a state trooper in his crisp pressed uniform, smoky bear hat, nice and neat and squared away on his head. And then he just looks at me and he says, "Let's go, John." And of course, being a young man about ready to graduate from high school, and let's face it, having a state trooper in the car, to use a phrase from the Navy, ups the pucker factor. Now, if you want to know what pucker factor means, it's a Navy aviation term. It determines how tight a certain part of the anatomy becomes in a stressful or dangerous situation, and I will leave it there. I took a deep breath, carefully drove the car off the parking lot, made my turns, made my way in and out of traffic. So far, so good, no problem. But then came the part that gets a lot of kids nervous, and that's when you do parallel parking. He had two 55-gallon drums spaced far enough apart, and he wanted me to safely navigate the car in between them. Very carefully, I gauged my position about the best I could, carefully backed my car in, and safely nested it right between the drums, and breathed a big sigh of relief when the trooper looked at me and said, "Well, congratulations, you passed it on the first try. You can now go back in and get your driver's license." And yes, like any other teenager or young adult, that's a big day. That's a big celebration, a rite of passage, getting that driver's license. And it's like, yes, I've got some freedom, get to travel around a little bit more. Now, I won't go into the details, but I did unfortunately get an accident not too long after that, and ended up a couple months later had to get another vehicle. I really felt bad about wrecking that Comet. It was a beautiful car, but scraped up some money from work. My dad and I helped get this 1970 Ford Maverick. And the Ford Maverick, unlike the Comet, was a two-door coupe. And but like the Maverick, the Comet, it had a straight 6 under the hood. And these old 6-cylinder engines, had some get up and go to them. I mean, it was a nice engine. And it was a sporty-looking car. Of course, that made me feel good, because here I am driving this nice sport coupe, and cruising around Fairmont, cruise around other parts of town, going into Taylor County. And then came, and I'll get to that in a second. But also, as the oldest kid in the household, and the only one who had a driver's license at that moment, there were the occasions where I had to help mom and dad get my brothers up to their school-related events. Now comes the more interesting part of the story. This is why I'm sharing this today. Around Thanksgiving of 1981, my mom and I both drove down to Summers County, West Virginia to visit my maternal grandmother and my Aunt Ethel. And Aunt Ethel is a trip. She most certainly was. She had a very colorful sense of humor, and a lot of her favorite quotes and jokes still resonate today, and I still get a good chuckle out of them. We go down there, enjoy the weekend, and then it was time for us to head back to Fairmont. Now, Summers County is located clear down in the south end of West Virginia. Marion County, where I grew up, is up in the northern part of West Virginia, about an hour south of Pittsburgh. It was at this point that Mom left Summers County about 5 minutes ahead of me. Now, as I was making my way home, this little BMW decides it wants to play games. And being a young man driving a sporty coupe, well, I wasn't going to let this little BMW show me up. So, as he was speeding up to try to pass me, I sped up to pass him. And this continued. We would be playing this cat and mouse game up I-79. We left Braxton County and we drove through 5 counties altogether in West Virginia. And then by the time I finally passed this guy for good, I finally bothered to look down at my speedometer. Now, the speedometer on these older vehicles went all the way up to 120. Well, it was pegged past 120 miles an hour. For all I know, I was probably doing at least 130, if not even more. But once I knew I was getting close to home and I had passed him, I got in the lane to go home, let the foot off the gas, and just let it gradually coast on down to where I was supposed to be driving, which was 55 miles an hour. Now, I read the driver's manual. I was familiar with what could have happened. Thank God I didn't get pulled over or the BMW. We both would have been in some serious trouble. But once I got to my parents' home, I parked the car in the driveway. Everything was not okay. Not a scratch on the car. 2 hours later, my mother shows up. Now, she was like, he got home. He left after me, but he got home before me. She decided to let my dad handle this one. Now, at that point, my dad said, "Son, how fast were you going?" I told him. Instead of giving me the lecture about what all the consequences, he only asked me one question. "Son, you were going that fast. What would have happened if you blew a tire?" And he walked away. Let me think about it. Needless to say, the light bulb clicked on, and I never drove that fast again. Sometimes that's all a parent has to do. This is John Cady. Hit the like or subscribe button. Glad you were here with me, and I'll catch you on the next one.